Now, this story, the Lone Ranger story, and God bless you, because I bet you're probably tired of telling it year in and year out.
I am tired.
But it's probably the single best talk show story I've heard in my life. Don't you think it's pretty good?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
You want to hear it right now?
Let's go.
We'll do the story.
All right.
All right.
It's a true story.
Would you like to hear a story of the Lone Ranger? When I was a young disc jockey, I would open up car dealerships, and I would do the remote, which you did too as a DJ and as a weatherman and all that.
Let's go to Jay Thomas now.
Come on out to the Dodge dealer. It was Dodge. And so the Lone Ranger, Clayton Moore, was working for that company, and he would come to the various dealerships, and little kids would come.
This is the guy who played the Lone Ranger.
The real Lone Ranger.
Right.
And he was very much into being the Lone Ranger. He wore the outfit, he wore the mask, he had the guns, he had the hat, and he was into being the Lone Ranger. So I get there, and I'm telling people to come out, and the Lone Ranger is there, and it's not a high point in my career. I don't know where my life is going. I have long, frizzy hair, and I'm a disc jockey. And my buddy Mike Martin, who was in the record business and who looked sort of like a Bay City roller. He had the long hair and the stacked heels and tight pants, and he would come.
See, now that's a new point. I haven't heard that.
You know, I was just realizing that
you never described him as a Bay City roller.
He looked like a Bay City roller, and he would do like this with his hair all the time, right?
Yeah.
So he would come, and we would get herbed up during the performance, which. So
it's nice that your boys are here for that.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, his son called him and says, "Dad, you smoked pot?" And so we would go behind the dumpster, you know, I'd do it at the end of the performance. I didn't want to, you know, ruin the car sales. And so we got completely loaded, and we come out, and no one was there to pick up the Lone Ranger to take him back to the Red Carpet Inn on Moorhead Street. So he looked very uncomfortable. I had an old beat-up Volvo. And I said, well, Mr. Moore, you know, can I give you a ride home? He says, well, sure. So we get the
still in the Lone Ranger suit.
We get him in the back seat of the Volvo. Mike and I, we can barely see the road. We get onto the thing, and we're driving like this in the Lone Ranger. We're being really quiet. The Lone Ranger is in the back seat. And Mike's, you know, doing like this, you know, checking his hair. And we're trying not to look stoned is the other thing we're trying to do. So we get in 5 o'clock traffic, and some guy is upset that we're on this Independence Boulevard. He's upset that it's all jammed. He backs, and it's a Buick, and it's a middle-aged man. I'll never forget him. And he backs into my car, and I can hear my headlight crunch.
Oh, no.
And he pulls out, and he turns off like this. Well, I go, that guy crashed into me. So I get in the Volvo, and I gun the thing, and we're chasing the guy through Charlotte, North Carolina, and the Lone Ranger's in the back seat, emotionless, just in the back seat like this, back and forth, and the mask and the whole thing. So I'm in the Volvo, and so finally I gun it, you know, and it gets right in front of the Buick, and I pull off, and Mike and I jump out, and I go, man, you crashed into my car. And he gets out, he says, no, I didn't. I said, yes, you did. You backed into me, and you broke my car. And he says, well, what do you want? I said, I'm going to call the cops. I'm going to call the cops. He says, oh, really? Well, who do you think they are going to believe? You two hippie freaks or me? And the Lone Ranger gets out from the Volvo. They'll believe me, citizen. And the guy goes, I didn't know it was you. And that's a true story.
There you go. I never get tired of the Lone Ranger.
Don't believe me. Don't believe me, citizen.
Now, we're going to show